Hello, everybody. Once again, thank you for tuning into the Barely Bushy podcast. I am your host, Bushy White. Always a pleasure to be with you guys and for you guys to be listening in. Today, I have a longtime friend joining me. He was a former quarterback at DeMatha High School. If you don't know the names like Victor Oladipo, Brian Westbrook, Markel Fultz, and Chase Young, who this guy played with, went on to play quarterback at Columbia University and is now transferred to Duke as a quarterback, and that is Ty Lenhart. You can see the name right there. Ty, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Pumped to be on.
Of course, of course. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit of what it was like to play against Chase Young in some practices.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the background. Went to DeMatha. Was at Columbia for 4 years. Played football there. Graduated this past spring, and then grad transferred to Duke and started this summer. And yeah, man, crazy journey through COVID, and we've been background for everybody who's listening. Bushy and I've known each other since what 20 what would you say
I mean, we 2015
2013.
was last time we would have seen each other in person, but it's got to be before that, somewhere in the early
Yeah,
teens,
2012, 2013.
something like that.
um Going to a Camp Sankanak in Pennsylvania. Just unreal memories there, and kept the relationship going on, and it's been a long time coming, so pumped to be on and talk a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, like we mentioned, quarterback in football, because this is something that I don't think I knew until like after camp. But how did you get into football, get into that kind of
Mhm.
realm? Because obviously, people start somewhere doing something. So there must have been some sort of moment, whether it was your parents pushing it to you or you were watching on TV and wanted to play. So how did the whole football thing come about in your life?
Yeah, so both of my parents actually went to Penn State. So growing up, I I don't know if I missed a home Penn State game growing up. Every Saturday, we were up at Penn State. I would go to away games with my dad, a few away games a year, just a diehard Penn State fan. So I grew up around football from the start, and quarterback just kind of, I always like it, just caught my eye. Ever since I was young, throwing little football around, like pictures of me like on the Penn State field with some of the players just throwing a little ball. Just all the way from the beginning, football was definitely kind of like my first love, my dream, always something I wanted to pursue. And early on, I was kind of, I was like, I grew a lot when I was younger, and we went by weight class, like in little league football. So I would have been with all these guys who like I had no idea who they were. So I kind of waited to play until eighth grade, and then I could finally like be with my friends on the same team.
Yeah, that
And
makes
I
sense.
started out played quarterback, right? Started out played quarterback. Then I also played defense too. I played like defensive end and safety. There's some, I don't know, I could get you. There's a good picture of me. I was playing safety, and a guy just stiff armed me. And there's spit coming out of my mouth, and just so that's when
Oh man.
defense wasn't the position for me, but played in eighth grade, and then just kind of worked all the way up. Kind of after, sorry, I started in sixth grade. I totally messed up. Started in sixth grade, played all the way through middle school, and then eighth grade got recruited by DeMatha. Um, and I mean, it was just the perfect fit. I played lacrosse all throughout when I was growing up. I'm from Maryland, so lacrosse is obviously pretty big in Maryland,
Oh yeah.
and those are kind of my two, lacrosse and football. And went to DeMatha, played both of those there, and story kind of went on from there. But definitely the upbringing with Penn State and going to games and just being around football every weekend, just a diehard fan, looking up to all the players, kind of what got me here.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're obviously you went to the games, but was playing sports something that runs in the family? Like, did your dad or your mom play things in college or high school, or were you kind
Mm-hmm.
of like everyone loves sports, but you were the one who went out and played them? Like, how does that the family dynamic there with sports play out?
Yeah, so both my mom and dad played a bunch of sports growing up. My dad actually played golf for Penn State in college.
Gotcha.
Um, didn't play football in college, but played golf at Penn State. My mom didn't play sports in college, but all growing up, sports was just the world kind of revolved around sports. growing up, like soccer, football, basketball, played a little hoops in middle school, went to DeMatha, was definitely not going to play hoops there, but lacrosse, like literally live and breathe lacrosse in Maryland, playing club ball, and then obviously football. It was just sports, sports, sports all over the place. So that was just kind of a natural thing growing up.
Yeah, no doubt. And as someone who obviously, I mean, at the time, people don't who don't know me back then, I was a lot heavier than I was now. So obviously, sports was I loved it, but I couldn't play it. So I didn't really know the whole idea of high school recruitment. Obviously, I understood the college side of it, but how does that high school recruitment work? Like, do people hear,
Yeah.
oh, there's this guy Ty in middle school who could be solid, and people go there? Like, is it similar to college scouting? Like, how does high school recruitment work? Because obviously high school and college are very different,
Mhm.
but the recruitment thing seems to be the same, which I didn't know. I know that near me, there's like Malvern Prep and Devon Prep, and you always know that like the good kids who are at sports go there, but how does the recruitment side of that work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think as this whole, social media announcing, like this whole kind of wave that we've experienced has kind of boosted the whole recruiting hype, like
Mm,
everything's around hype and trying to get the biggest hype and attracting kids to their program. So, I mean, now guys are making like recruitment tapes for high school. Like they're posting like I've committed here. And we're all like, what? Like you're posting a commitment video to go to high school? Like what? But in Maryland, it was kind of an interesting situation. It's like mostly you go to different private schools, in a lot of places you live where you live and you go to the public school closest to you.
mm.
That's not really how Maryland worked. Like the public schools around us they weren't as competitive as the private schools. So I played for Crofton when I was younger in Little League, and um, just some DeMatha coaches pop by during the game. I met them, and they just kind of recruited me there. And I also kind of got recruited for lacrosse. I played for coaches. So club lacrosse in the summer, I had DeMatha coaches who would coach me. So they were kind of pulling me towards DeMatha. So just a lot of little different things. It wasn't like a big deal how it is today.
Yeah.
Middle school going to high school, it's crazy. I mean, it's just everything's just kind of it's changed so much. But coaches would come out to games and just check us out. And I met the DeMatha coaches, got close to them. I remember going to dinner with them one night, just kind of being like, yeah, like this is definitely where I want to go. I can totally see myself. Once I shadowed and went there, it was just like this is such a special place, so much history. Like I want to be a part of this. So it was an easy decision, but pretty crazy how the process has changed over time to now.
Yeah, and even just the way that people are. I mean, I'm seeing pictures of kids who are in like sixth and seventh grade, and they're like 6'5", like 300 pounds, and it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous how big these kids
Yeah.
are at such a young age. So when you got there, was there like any sort of nervousness at all? Because obviously, I don't know where you were standing on terms of the depth chart coming in as a freshman,
Yeah.
but like the games are somewhat televised. I remember like a few
Yeah.
times watching your high school games on TV. And so that's when it hit me like, oh, like Ty's high school, like this isn't just my local high school. This is like there's nationwide recognition for the way that this school is. So like was there sort of that nervousness going in? Like there's obviously eyes on me. This isn't the local high school where you have 15 people from downtown who are like grew up in the town's
Yeah.
fans. Like this is big
Right.
time.
Yeah. I mean, the tradition, like I said, the tradition, the history of DeMatha was just, it goes so far back. And going there, I was like, okay, I could go somewhere and play a lot earlier and it would be, an easier route. And there's DeMatha where, I'm not going to play as soon as I get there. It's going to be a grind. Like I'm going to have to work really hard and work my way up the depth chart and probably wait until I have to play, which is obviously what happened. So I was like, I want that. Like, I want the challenge. I'm totally down for that. And absolutely. Like showing up day one. I remember going to some of the first like summer practices and I'm standing around guys like this guy's going to Maryland, this guy's going to Penn State, this guy's going to Ohio State, like all these different names. Um, but it was awesome. They really took me on like a few names like Shane Simmons. He He took me in when I was younger. He actually ended up going to Penn State, played 4 years there. He just played his last year at Marshall this past year, but guys like him kind of took me in, took me under their wing, and just showing up day one with those guys. They're huge guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't Crofton football anymore. It's real deal high school football. And then as we started getting into the season and you know playing with these guys and playing on TV, you start to realize, okay, this is a different level of ball, and that just pushed me even more to help me where I got to. So I mean, making that decision, go to DeMatha and challenge myself, kind of take the road that was going to be a little more challenging, paid off. I mean, the best decision I've ever made. I always say that DeMatha was the best decision I've ever made.
Absolutely. And before sort of moving into the college realm of things, I just got to know what it was like being with a guy like Chase Young. Cause like there are certain
Yeah.
people that you see at a certain point and you're like, this dude is just different. Like for instance, like 20 minutes down the road from where we went, Mikal Bridges went to high school. And it was like when you watched him, it's like some of the guys are good, but like this dude is so clearly already close to a pro level. So what was that like? Because I got to imagine even in high school, a guy like Chase Young, like you just knew there was something different.
Oh yeah. I remember. So he came from a public school. He came over from Pilati, and I mean, just day one, big dude. Um, and his transition from like, yeah, I wish there was a picture like from when he showed up day one at the Matha to like his freshman year at Ohio State. It's just like like he just, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember his first game. Literally the first game he played for DeMatha. We played Miami Central on ESPN. Um, and he had like, I don't even know if he had an offer yet. He may have had like a few, but like smaller schools. And he played in that game, had a crazy game. And the next week he got Alabama and Ohio State. They both offered him the same day. And then from there on, the rest is history. But awesome dude. You know, you could tell from day one he was going to be special. And you see where he is now, just
Oh my,
absolutely killing it in the NFL and doing his thing. So
ridiculous.
crazy journey. He's practicing with him and getting to know him was awesome.
So obviously, like I mean, Chase Young is Chase Young. He's that dude. But still, for you, like you went to Columbia. So was there a certain point in high school, or did someone say something to you where you knew that you could take it to the next level? Because
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the program, like Division 1 football is Division 1 football. Anyone who's playing
Yeah.
D1 sports is very, very good. Whether it's the guy at the end of the bench or the national star player, like it's Division 1 sports. So when
Yeah.
was that point for you, or a conversation that you had where you realized? I love football, and this is something I can do at the absolute next level.
I think it was freshman year. Freshman year, like very rarely do you kind of go and step in freshman year and start on varsity. Like it's not usually a thing, or it wasn't a thing back then. I don't know how it is today, but you play JV and then you travel with varsity on Fridays. So you go to the games and just, get a feel for the experience and all that stuff. But JV, I mean, freshman year, I had some guys on my team and we just absolutely lit it up. And it was so much fun. I mean, just throwing it all over the place. Had some crazy games. Like we beat our rival Gonzaga, like a Hail Mary at the end of the game. It was just so much fun. And at that point, I was like, okay, like I really think I would take this to the next level. I'm in the perfect position at the perfect place. If I play my cards right, work hard, and stay dedicated and focused, and I can put myself in a position to go somewhere. And that was always the dream from day one, was just to play college football at a high level.
Yeah, for sure. And like we mentioned, but in the beginning of this, you ended up going to Columbia. So how did that choice come about? Like, were you recruited, or was that a
Mm-hmm.
school that you wanted to go to? How does going to Columbia come into play for you? Like, how did you end up there?
So it's a pretty crazy story. I'll try to keep it brief. So junior, pretty much freshman, sophomore year, got some time. There's a guy in the grade ahead of me who was he was pretty much the starter, but we would play a little bit back and forth. He started the majority, but I played some games and split reps, stuff like that. Same junior year, split more reps. He was hurt a game or two. I started then, played the whole game. But senior year was like my year. Like I had a lot of recruiting buzz going on going into senior year, but teams are kind of like, okay, we want to see your first three games. Like we really like you, but we want to see you, perform their first three games. Um, and leading up to senior year, our first game was against Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas on national television. Like dream game,
Actually,
had
I
the
feel
whole
like I watched that game. I
organization.
feel like I have a gut feeling
Did
that I
you?
watched that game. Yeah, yeah, that's that
Yeah,
name sounds familiar.
yeah. Bishop Gorman, they're a powerhouse program out west. Um, so that was kind of like you know senior year was kicking off to a crazy start.
Mhm.
So going into senior year, I'm the starter, fired up for the season, excited for the recruiting process, all these different things, and um, so the game was on a Friday night, and we left Wednesday. We were gonna fly out Wednesday, and that Monday I got so sick, like I was just feeling super sick, had a fever, didn't
Man,
know what was going on, so I went to the doctor, and they ran some tests and found out I had mono.
oh,
So
that is no fun.
when you have mono, obviously, yeah, when you have mono, it's like, okay, usually you're out, not allowed to play, stuff like that. So I felt like okay, like my spleen was fine. Like there wasn't any like it wouldn't have been totally stupid to play. I mean, obviously it was a little risky, but um, told my head coach we kept it very down low, and I went and I played with mono against Bishop Gorman. Crazy game. We lost by like, let's see, 10 points, something like that. It was a close game. Our starting running back, he's actually the starter at South Carolina right now, Marshawn Lloyd. He snapped his wrist in the first quarter, and
Oh,
that just killed us. But yeah, Bishop Gorman was they were a really good team, and such a cool experience just playing on ESPN in Las Vegas, all that stuff. So that was awesome. But literally, as soon as that game ended, I just crashed. I lost like 14 pounds, sickest I've ever been, like not even
oh,
close. So I was out of school. I was out of football the whole next week. I missed that game. And then I came back the following week and felt good, like got my weight back, got myself back, was feeling better. And going to that third game, we played, I forget the team's name. I think it might have been Friendship. Um, but we played them and blew them out. Had a great game, was feeling great, and it was early fourth quarter, and I was getting to the point. It was kind of like one of those like last drives before I was going to go out, and the backup was going to come in and finish the game because we were up so much. And I rolled out and was going to throw a ball on the run, and a guy came and I threw it. The guy came and he hit me like right in the chest, and another guy came and hit my knee. So it was kind of like a weird angle.
oh.
I got the wind knocked out of me. Like I hit the ground. It was like trying to catch my breath. I didn't really feel anything. I stood up and my knee felt like super weird. It was just like
Something
felt
was off.
super weird. Limped off. Yeah, something was off. So went over. Um, they said, something's wrong with the knee. We'll get it checked out, put ice on it. It was killing me. And got the MRI, all that stuff, and I partially tore my MCL. And that was a pretty crazy shockwave. Senior year, dealing with all, with mono to this point, just, all the way up to this stage, and this happens. Recruiting's on the line, everything's on the line. Like,
Oh
this is
yeah.
my year. And that happens. So I missed most of the season. I tried to come back towards the end. Oh, sorry. I tried to play the next game, and we just ran the ball. I couldn't move. If someone came at me, I would just fall on the ground.
Yeah.
Threw it a little bit, but we won the next game. And then the following game, I just like at a certain point, I couldn't do it. We were down, so they took me out. Um, put another guy in, and we ended up losing that game. But I was out for I don't know how many games, but tried to come back later in the season. Just it was just so tough, and at that point, all the bigger schools that I was talking to had kind of left the conversation. Um, and so I it was a long story short, it was a definitely one of the tougher things I've ever had to go through. Just you know everything I've explained, but at that point, I'm like, okay, you know what's happened's happened. I still want to go play college football. It's not going to be at a Power Five school that I'd hoped or dreamed of. I could walk on somewhere, but I had a bunch of interest from Ivy leagues, so I was like, okay. I mean, going to an Ivy League, getting a absolutely crazy degree, and then also playing football. It's big time football there. It's not Power Five, but it's Division I college football.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, right. So it was pretty much Princeton, Cornell, and Columbia. Um, those are like the three biggest interests that I had, and Columbia came pretty late in the process. And I remember after the season, Columbia came up, the coaches came up and or came down to Maryland and saw me throw. We kind of, I meshed well with the coaches, loved, you know, what they were trying to do, everything. Went out for a game, visited, and committed. Um, committed to Columbia like right before Thanksgiving, so it was pretty late in the process. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just loved. They had a new coach who was kind of turned the whole program around. I love the coaches there. I love the city, just everything. Um, it just felt like the perfect decision. So chose to go there. Crazy turn of events. Like Columbia, if you told me I was going to Columbia, like I didn't even know what Columbia was in high school until learn about IBs and recruiting and all that stuff. But pretty crazy story how that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, I didn't even know Columbia existed until I saw something on your Instagram about it. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
guess this is a school.
yeah,
But no, the cool part is that it may not have been exactly how you planned out, but you got to do what you set out to do, which was play
yeah,
Division I football. So now you graduated high school, you're at Columbia, that's a Division I school for football. Kind of tell me, what is the difference like? What is like a day at training camp, like the intensity difference? Because obviously, when you're getting recruited for high school and it's like a top of the line high school like DeMatha, that's going to be intense and a shockwave to your system and to how you
yeah,
function. But then the next level of Division I football is like a whole nother dog. So what was that like getting to Columbia and seeing the intensity and being like, okay, like I'm here at a Division I program, and this is what I would say is the big time. I mean, it's Division I sports.
yeah,
So I'd imagine you knew somewhat what to expect, but you can't ever expect day one and what it's like to go there in the beginning. You can't expect it until you experience it.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I always say this: DeMatha prepared me so well. Like it felt like a college program at DeMatha, just how it was run, um, everything, training camp, practices. I mean, it was literally like a college program. Felt that way, especially with the talent around you, like the guys I was playing with. It had a college feel to it. So definitely made the step going to college a lot easier. But I mean, you can never compare it. The game's faster. Um, it's at a certain level it becomes it's a business.
Yeah.
These coaches they got to put food on the table for their families, and they're depending on you to perform and play. So um, obviously the level of intensity, all that stuff, just the bar rose. But I felt really prepared going into it. There wasn't like a shock. It was more just adjusting to the speed of the game, the knowledge of the game, having to know protections and plays. The playbook obviously got a lot bigger. I think that was the biggest gap is just the knowledge of the game and the playbook and operating the offense at a different level. That was the biggest jump. But again, DeMatha prepared me better than any other place could have. So it made that step going to college a lot easier.
For sure. I mean, they have put out countless names that like we didn't even list. Like I saw
Mm,
that guys like Cameron Wake went to DeMatha way back when. So it's like
mhm.
they're clearly doing something right there when it comes to their sports program, like
Yeah,
across all sports, not just football. So that's really awesome that they were able to do that. Because I'd imagine if you just stayed at your local high school, it probably the transition would have been a lot harder. And the funny
yeah,
thing to me when it comes to football players is a lot of the times people are kind of interpret them as like they're like, these big jocks who wear helmets and like to hit people. But again, I played 1 year of football in high school, like junior year, and was on JV. So clearly, like I'm not on this level, but I saw enough where it's like, oh, you can't like be stupid. Like there's a lot that you need to know. You need to know what different calls mean and different routes. Like if a receiver is your first look and he runs the wrong route, then like you got to learn how to adjust in the blink of an eye. So like there's a lot to that. And for you, the first time, I don't know what year it was or against who, but the first time you stepped on the field for a Division 1 football game, like kind of walk me through what that was like and what it felt like to obviously you can always anticipate it, but once you're there, like, okay, I am here and getting Division 1 football time. What did that sort of feel like for you?
yeah. So going into camp, um, this was 2018, freshman year of Columbia. Um, so interesting part about the Ivies is you can't go early. A lot of other colleges, like you join workouts, like you're in it. The Ivies operate in a very different way, just with a lot of different aspects. So I couldn't really be with the team until training camp started in August.
Oh wow. So
So
whole
it
summer
was
not with the team.
it's right. So I went up one or two times, just kind of like under the radar, just meet some of the guys, um, trying to get anything that I could to get ready for camp. And so going into camp, it was like a total, a shock. Just like, okay, playbook, all this stuff is just new. The offense, practice, everything. So going into camp, that was definitely a big adjustment. In camp went really well. There was I don't know how many quarterbacks there were, but I got pretty much in the spot. I was the number two going into the first game, which was awesome. And it's crazy. The first game, starting quarterback, I don't know, it might have been like third quarter or something like that, but he got knocked out, totally knocked out of the game. Awful concussion, like boom.
Like your
Um,
first game that you're there, first game you're suited up.
yeah. So I go in and we had, I forget exactly how it went, but we ran, we had a pass. I threw it incomplete. Like I think I like dirted the ball to this guy on like a glance, little RPO. Then I like rolled out. And I think I was late on a throw, and the coach was just like, "All right, like I don't know if this is smart right now. Like it's a lot. Like they didn't expect this coming into it, obviously."
Oh yeah.
So the guy who's a three, he had been there. He was in the same class as the starter. He had played a little bit the year before, so they just said, "Okay, we're gonna put him in." Rest of the game, we were up, so they're like, "We just, this is a smart decision right now. We're gonna let him play."
Yeah.
And I, they're hard to explain, but they have like a running quarterback package at Columbia, and so I did that. I was like the starter for that. So in red zone situations, stuff like that, I did a lot of running, like a little passing here and there. So I still did that, which was really good just to like get my feet wet, get hit, feel the speed of the game. But they let him kind of finish out the game, like, playing quarterback like most of the drive. So that was game one. And then going the next couple games, they had the third guy stay while the starter was getting back from his concussion. And, during those next few games, I definitely, got really comfortable in practice, just, learning, growing, all that stuff, making up for the time that I didn't really have in the summer, you know. And pretty much halfway through the season, our starter came back and we were playing Dartmouth and he got knocked out again. And
So
so
unfortunate for that guy.
crazy, man. Oh, it's terrible. So I went in, played the rest of the game, and started the rest of the year. And I obviously a lot of ups, a lot of downs. But it was really good experience just to be thrown in the fire off the bat. Just figure it out. Learned a ton just about preparation and everything playing college football. So that freshman year at Columbia was a crazy year. Definitely not what I expected. Um, but that was definitely such a big growth moment for me, just mentally and just knowing like what I have to do going into the following year and all that stuff. So
For sure. Yeah. There are some things in life where it's like you can train and you can prep, but until you're actually thrown into it, like that's where the experience
yeah,
is at. And like you gotta fail at first. Like I'm sure that they didn't expect you going in and going perfect throwing percentage, perfect QBR with 200
right.
yards. Like you're not expecting that. Like you're gonna fail before you get to where you want
Mm,
to be at. And so you're at Columbia, you're playing through the football, and like you're getting closer and closer to graduation, and you graduate and looking back, do you have a biggest highlight or memory of being on the team at Columbia before you graduated? Like, what was that one moment for you where it's like, this is like a lifetime memory moment for me? How's it going? How's it going? Me? I'm doing fantastic. You want to know why I'm doing fantastic? Because I just recently subscribed to Barely Bushy on YouTube. What? You haven't done that yet? You should do it right now. Scroll down, hit subscribe, and boom, there you go. Life made. It's a life hack for you. There you go. All right, now back to the show.
yeah, I'd say without a doubt beating Harvard my sophomore year. The senior class that year, they were, I mean, one of the best class, probably the best class to ever go through Columbia football history. Just they had won a ton of games. They were kind of the class that turned everything around because Columbia was, I mean, they were pretty bad going back. Like before I had gotten there a few years back, before the coaching change, like they struggled a lot. So they had not beaten Harvard. That was the only team they hadn't beaten in the Ivy League. So going into the game, that was the biggest goal, and we beat them in double overtime.
Oh, there you
So
go.
that
That's got
was,
to be exciting for
yeah,
sure.
that was so much fun. Just celebrating with those guys. More, just it was such a special moment because seeing those guys and all the work that they had put in, um, just paying off, and that was definitely my biggest highlight at Columbia for sure.
That sounds awesome. And again, another one of those things where you can watch it on TV or you can be a fan or even a parent, but when you're a part of that brotherhood and that team, like it's got to be
Oh
so
yeah.
much more, especially when you know like these guys have put up with whatever for 4 years of
Mm-hmm.
college and to finally reach that one point for you. And I know I saw you post a lot about this when you were at Columbia and obviously working through football. Like you've worked out with some pretty decently big names. Like how does that come about? Like I'm if correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I saw at one point, like I think Trevor Lawrence was one of the guys
Mm-hmm.
you worked out with. Like how does that connection work out? What's it like be working out with those guys? Because like we were saying, like Chase Young, like you knew he was different. Like when you work out with a guy like a Trevor Lawrence, there's even more so. This is like the dude. Like he's going to do very well. How does that come about, and where those connections come through, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
what is that experience like working out with guys where you know they're going to be big time?
Yeah, so my sophomore year of high school, I got an email from Jordan Palmer, and he was running. It's called QB Summit, like one of his camps out in California, and he kind of sent like a mass email to a bunch of high school quarterbacks around the country, and I was actually going out there to visit family. Crazy
Just perfect
uh,
timing.
connection there. Yeah, it was really perfect timing. So I'm like, talk to my dad, like, yeah, like, can I do it? Like, this would be awesome. So this is crazy. So it was like his first QB summit, his first camp, and show up, and there are a bunch of crazy connections there. But I mean, the QBs who were there was Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Jarrett Stidham, Josh Dobbs, Brady White, um, few more, and then some like how QB summits run is their college quarterbacks and their high school quarterbacks, and the college quarterbacks are like the counselors,
Oh,
and
okay.
then
Gotcha.
they kind of like help the high school quarterbacks through it, and they do their own stuff like after the camp with Jordan. Uh, they get a house and they all hang out and talk ball and stuff like that. So crazy, like those names there. I mean, Pat Mahomes he was at Texas Tech, like kind of a people didn't really know him well at all. I didn't know who he was until I met him there, and he had a
Clearly things
rocket of
have
an arm and
changed.
just yeah, right, like super raw, like crazy arm, but just not really polished yet. And Deshaun Watson was really like the big hype because he had just won the Heisman and all this stuff. So that was crazy. But went to that camp. That was so fun. Awesome experience. And I kept in touch with Jordan. Um, and then, I mean, to keep it short, throughout high school, throughout college, I became really tight with him. He's become a mentor, like very close friend. He's like a brother to me. And so I went out there once or twice in high school, when I could, or when things connected. I mean, obviously it's in California. Um, and in college, so during COVID, we obviously the season was canceled for Ivy Leagues. We weren't even allowed back at school. So I decided the spring of COVID to take the semester off. And Jordan reached out to me. He does draft training. And he's like, hey, what do you think about coming out here? You could be like pretty much like the draft intern. So help him out with all of his stuff going on. Just help him out with running everything with the draft guys. Then you could also train with them. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. See
Great
you there.
offer.
Right. So that was, I mean, best few months of my life. It was literally just a dream being out there. So it was Trevor. His draft guys were Trevor Lawrence, Brady White, and Shane Buechele. And so Trevor's obviously with the Jags. Brady's kind of bouncing around. He's going to find a team soon, and I think I think it's XFL he's in right now. I forget what league it is. And then Shane's with the Chiefs, and living with them, getting into them was awesome. They've become super close friends, and obviously all the NFL guys are out there who train with Jordan, like Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Kyle Allen. So I mean, just big names everywhere, and work like getting to know those guys, working with them. They're just normal dudes. And that's how they like to be treated. They love it out in California because it's like nobody's gonna run up to them and crash them. Out at random place to eat out in California, like people aren't gonna rush them and oh my gosh, can I get your autograph? Can I get a picture? I mean, in some cases, yes, but it's just so chill out there. And, they're just normal dudes. That's how I love to be treated. And they're just awesome guys. So good to be around. Awesome to learn from. They're so helpful. And they've helped me a ton, just not only physically, but mentally and just how to approach the game and just stuff that they've learned. So that was, I mean, life changing experience. Best couple months of my life. It was literally just all football all day.
Oh
Yeah, it
yeah,
was awesome.
that's truly amazing. And honestly, like when you think about different things like that, like sure you can learn, on the field mechanics, plays, how to do different reads, but the deeper level to that is it's at the end of the day you've gained friends and it's building relationships and
Yeah,
like
that's what
you
it's
made
all about.
relationships with these guys. Like yeah, you can
It's all
learn
about.
from Trevor Lawrence how to throw a deep ball, but being able to reach out to him like over the summer late at night, like hey, I'm wrestling with how to do so and him responding like
Mm,
that's probably more valuable long term than it is how to throw a deep ball. Like building those lifelong relationships, I'd imagine is something that obviously the football is there, but you got to love that part as equally, maybe not, maybe even more. Like just building
100%.
relationships.
That's going like coming back from that trip. Everybody, people were asking like, "How was it? What was it like?" Blah blah blah. Same questions you're asking, and I just take away it was the relationships. Literally, that's biggest thing I took away from it is just getting to know those guys and establishing relationships with them and they'll be friends for life. So super special time.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And so now, fast forward, you're done Columbia. You had your experience there, and now you're at Duke. How did Duke come into play? Because obviously that's a little bit of a bigger program than Columbia, and it's one thing to do your master somewhere, but to continue wanting to do football for another year. How did playing at Duke and wanting to continue the football dream at Duke, like where did that come into play? Was it something that
Yeah.
you wanted to do? Was it something that partway through your time at Columbia, Duke was looking at you, or was it as you got closer to graduation you wanted to play, and so Duke was one of the programs that you felt you could do? Like, where did Duke come into play for you?
Yeah. So come out of COVID, kind of a weird situation. So I technically had 2 years that I could have played at Columbia, and going into I guess my senior year. So I would have had a senior year, but since I took a semester off, I could come back the following fall and play another year because of COVID. Um, so I didn't really. I was just kind of focused on senior year. I wasn't really like, oh, I want to go somewhere else, or I wasn't really worried about that. And going into senior year, things kind of took a turn. Uh, we had a two quarterback system ish. It just wasn't. Some things happened, and it wasn't. I just felt like I had to make a decision that was best for me, and it was a super hard decision. But my senior year, I decided to redshirt a few games in, and so that would give me 2 years to go somewhere else.
Okay.
And so definitely bold move, kind of like betting on myself. Um, but I had to make that decision. It was the best decision for me in that moment, not the one I intentionally wanted to, but just how things shook out. And so going like that was kind of like, okay, I'm going all in. This could go terribly or it could go awesome, but I'm willing to take that risk and bet on myself and see what happens. So during the season, obviously I'd taken a red shirt year. Recruiting was quieter because I'd entered the transfer portal at that moment, and during the season it was quieter. Some people reached out, some smaller schools, um, but Duke kind of came along in the spring after the season. Um, I had some connections there, kind of like weird stories, but long story short, I got in contact with them, and after that was like even a thing, after Duke became even a possibility, I was like, oh my gosh, if I could go there, that would be a dream. Um, and yeah, just kind of how it shook out. Talked to the coaches, and they said they would give me an opportunity, and that's all I could ever ask for. So I locked that in, and here we are.
Yeah,
Just a crazy, crazy turn of events. Like I really had no idea, no expectations. I just wanted to find, a place where I could play ball and where they'll give me an opportunity, and that's all I was really asking for. And Duke ended up being that spot.
yeah, and sometimes those competitions, whether you win it out or lose out, they push you to be better. They push you to want to
Mm-hmm.
work hard and all those things. So for this upcoming season, like we could potentially see you out on the field for Duke. And you have, if I'm correct, you said 2 years at Duke to play, or is it just the one?
Yeah, 2 years of eligibility. So yeah, since I took the red shirt, I'll have this year and then I'll have next year. And I'm in school as a grad student here, so I'll be doing grad school and then also playing. So no.
Yeah. So quickly, I mean, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute just of because I'm curious already with how much stuff people have going on. Some people can barely do 5 classes. How do you balance school and being a Division 1 athlete? And obviously
Mm.
grad school, it's harder, but it's typically less classes, but it's more work because it's grad school. So how does that balance of that without like losing a social life? Because obviously at the end of the day, like you and I were still in our early 20s. So like we don't want to have
Mm,
zero social life. So what's it like
right.
balancing that stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, sounds kind of typical answer here, but time management and being useful with every little smidge of time you get. Being organized, just, knocking stuff out when you have time, just getting it done. And I think a part of what me and all the guys who played Division college sports in general, you sacrifice a lot of that time to your sport, to school. Um, and that's what you sign up for. You got to love what you're doing, or else it's going to be miserable.
Yeah.
If you want to have the social scene and the social life and that whole side of it, then I mean, playing Division One college sports is probably not the best option. But like loving football, and I literally tell people, they're like, "How's it going?" All this stuff. I'm like, I'm living the dream. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do. Being in the meeting rooms, being out at practice, being with the guys, like, this is literally all I've ever wanted. So it's not. If it was a burden, I'd be miserable.
Hmm.
And obviously, it's hard. Like, training camp's coming up. It's going to be tough balancing that. And I'm actually going to have to do school during training camp, which is a whole nother deal I've never had to deal with. So that'll be fun. But, you gotta manage your time well and be willing to sacrifice your free time and social life and all that different stuff. Um, and just stay focused. If you really focus and you trying to chase that goal that you want, nothing will really hold you back, and nothing really is a burden to you if that's really what you want.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's a mindset, but also, you can't fall behind or lack or be like, this
Mhm.
week I'm gonna kind of tamper off and not do as much. Like, no, you gotta have that focus
Yeah.
and that mindset. And obviously, you being a Division 1 athlete, like, I gotta ask the question, post college, are there NFL hopes or dreams or plans, or is this something that you've absolutely loved and enjoyed, but you kind of see it post Duke, like, this is it, so I'm going to try to enjoy it while it's here? Like, what is the plan for football slash NFL type of dream, I guess?
I mean, I think if you go into the room and you ask the team, "Hey, who wants to play NFL football in here?" I think every hand in the room will be raised and should be raised because, I mean, that's everybody's dream. That has always been the dream. Obviously, college football and go to the NFL. And if that opportunity presents itself, then I mean, without a doubt, that is something I would want to do. But I'm like, in this position, you can't really focus on that. You just have to take it day. I'm literally just trying to take it day by day. Um, before I even think about playing NFL football, I gotta do really good here and play really well here and get on the field here. So that's kind of what I'm focused on. But if that opportunity presents itself, it's a no brainer. I think every person in every Division 1 college football room would raise their hand to that question and say yes. So without a doubt, yes, that's the dream. But taking it day by day, not thinking about that, just trying to focus on the now and seize the opportunity now to give myself a chance to even make that a thing.
And you certainly would hope so, because if everyone raised their hand, it means they're all bought into what they're doing and putting
Right.
150% into it. So you would hope for that. And before we kind of close, one thing that Ty and I brought up very early on is the way that we met is through a camp, Camp Sankanak, great camp. The main focus of that camp is obviously faith and your relationship with the Lord. So I'm curious on your perspective. What is it like walking with Christ and having a relationship with God, and being in, college football rooms, in which I would imagine the vast majority of it is not like that. I've heard that, it's difficult. I've never been in one myself, but typically when you
Hmm.
hear interviews and stuff, it's like it's not easy being open and talking about the faith and having these conversations because everyone's so focused on football, football, football. And then if they get a night off, they want to go to a party or go out or do something and not
Hmm.
really want to have those conversations. So what is it like having a relationship with the Lord and walking in your faith while also being in Division 1 sports?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of points I've talked about. I always say this, or I think Jordan said it to me, Jordan Palmer, and it's true. Especially the quarterback position, there's a lot more adversity than there is glory in this position. Like, you are going to have a lot more moments of adversity than you will. the glory and everything that you play for. Um, but those moments of adversity are you look back and you're like, wow, like I made such a leap. I learned so much from that situation, and I think all the times of adversity that I've had, and there've been a lot of them, and a lot that have been brutal. Um, Definitely some of the hardest times of my life where you can't let this game define you. That's the biggest thing I've taken away. Like if I let football define me, it's gonna fail me every time. And that goes for anything. You put your identity in something of the world, it's always gonna fail you. Whether that's your family, whether that's sports, whether that's a friend, anything. Like anything of this world is
100%.
gonna fail
Oh
you.
yeah.
Um, and that's where like you have to put your identity in Christ and who you are as a child of God and lean on your faith because and that's just been something that's helped me through so many different things is like I go out and have a bad day, throw a pick, this that, like okay, that's okay, like I'm still here, I'm still alive, still kicking. Like who I am is not football. I come off that field and I'm not going to let that define who I am. And that's a small thing. I mean, you go to like a big game and you do something crazy and you lose the game in overtime. You could point out any scenario, but it's like that doesn't define it. And Trevor actually said it in a press conference. Pretty cool. You can look it up. He said the exact same thing. Um, when he's out there and he's being criticized and all this different stuff, he's like, that doesn't define me. Like this game is not who I am. It's a part of who I am, but it's not who I am. Like who I am is in Christ. And that's where my identity comes from. So that's been something that especially like I really learned that in high school. And that happened my senior year. Like I just had to have a total reset and just reflect on like who I am. And football had failed me in that moment and I was in a really tough position. I contemplated what was going to happen if I was even going to be able to play football. And I'm like, okay, it's not who I am. It's a part of who I am. It's a big part of who I am. But so, and it's tough because, like, you go up to people and you talk to people, and the first question they ask is, how's football?
Yeah,
Or,
all the
how's
time.
football going? Like, it's the first thing that always comes up. And obviously, I mean, that's natural. It's how it is. But, you just have to have a constant reminder that, who you are is your identity in Christ. And leaning on my faith through all these times of adversity have just helped me grow even more through it. And I look back, like, when the air comes out of the ball and football's done, it's not necessarily like obviously I'm going to remember the awesome times and the great times, but it's those times of adversity that have really stuck out to me, and I've just grown so much in my faith and as a person. And I chair like, and it helps me for those times of adversity that are going to come because I'm going to have a lot more times of adversity, whether that's in football, whether that's in life, and those situations really help me to be prepared for when that comes next. So that's I could go on forever about that, but just
Oh yeah.
rooting my identity and in him and um, not letting the game or anything else define me.
Exactly. And it's funny because from like a worldly sense, people would be like, oh, that's kind of whack. We want you to be solely focused on football. And like you look at it like, okay, like, yeah, that doesn't mean that you're not focused. It's just that, say, a successful NFL career is probably 10 to 12 years, which takes you into like your early to mid 30s. Well, you still got 60 ish, 50 years of life left. Like, what are you
Yeah,
going to do after that? And like you said, obviously you're a good friend of Trevor's, but like for him, like from what I understand, he had always had success like high school and college, and then going to a team like Jacksonville. Now they've improved and stuff like that, but I'm sure that his rookie season didn't go how he had wanted it to go, and that was new for him. But having that relationship with the Lord and like being able to go through that, I never saw like any clips or anything of him doing interviews or stuff like that where he lost his mind or was losing it or like people were like, oh no, he was in a locker room like cursing up a storm, like stuff like that because although he's this great football player, that's not his identity. Like he realizes that one day, 10 years down the road, like this is all going to go away. And what's
Yeah.
the next step?
Yeah. It's like you said, it's not like, oh, this guy, he's not focused on football. He doesn't really love it. Like, no, like football is everything to me. Like it's all I'm focused on every day. Like it's my dream. Like that's what I want to do and play as long as I can. But you can't let it define you. And if you do, you're gonna be in a really tough spot.
Exactly. And I know that like specific times in my life where it's like people look at and say like, "Oh, like this thing didn't go the way that you wanted, so like the Lord let you down in that." And it's like, "No, like I was let down in my own personal plans, but his plans were different. Like obviously your personal plan was probably to go straight from high school to go to this big, like you said, Power 5
Yeah.
school, and that
Right.
was your plan, and so you might have been upset in the moment because it failed you, but then the Lord had different plans, and I'm sure that through Columbia and now at Duke, there are things that you've done and conversations you've had and people that you've met that had it gone according to your plan, there's no way that these things would have happened. And it's cool
Yeah.
because people think that when stuff doesn't go our way, it's because the Lord lets down. It's like, no, like that's my plan, but my plan isn't the best plan. We're all humans here. Like we're gonna make plenty of mistakes, and
Yep.
he doesn't. So it's
Yeah.
funny to see all that, and I'd imagine that there are definitely, like you said, adversity and tough times playing Division 1 sports where like you're sitting back and thinking, man, Lord, like what is going on? Why is this happening?
Right.
Maybe someone came up to you in the locker room and you're like, oh, I barely knew this guy's on the team, but like now he wants to talk to me. And so it's awesome to see those things moving. And again, like you said, it doesn't mean you're not focused. It doesn't mean that you don't love the
Yeah.
game, that you don't have these big dreams. It just means that you are aware that the game is going to let you down. You're not going to have 100% completion percentage and no picks and have this perfect career. It just means that you understand that there's the downside of these and there's going to be tough times, but that you're not going to let it define you because your
Yeah.
definition is in somebody who is never going to let you down and help you get through those times. So before coming to a close here, how can people track you? What are your social medias, the football team? Like, how can people sort of track your progress and then come football time, check you out and see what's going on? Like, how can people follow you on that?
Yeah. I'm not the only really social media I'm active on is Instagram. I think my username's like Ty_Lenhart. But other than that, I mean I'm not on Twitter or anything else. But yeah, I mean Duke football news and all that stuff will be out on social media. You could probably follow it there. But yeah, man, I'm excited. See where the journey takes us and see what the Lord's plan is for the next move. It's gonna be
Oh, yeah.
exciting.
For sure. Well, yeah, I know. I, for one, am going to be watching out. And regardless, however it goes, I'm going to be tuning in to Duke football games, which is ironic because as someone who grew up as a North Carolina fan, it's weird to say that, but I guess I can somewhat cheer for, a Duke player, maybe not necessarily the team, but no, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate the time because, like you said, training camp is coming up, and you've got a lot going on. So even being able to have this time has been awesome. And yeah, thanks for joining me, and thank you for everybody for giving it a listen and tuning in. Hope that you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe and like the show. And we're going to be trying to constantly put out content for you guys here. I'm Bushy White. This has been Barely Bushy, and we will see you next time.